Well, good morning, Miguel Aleixo from BRIK Projects. Morning from down under, other parts of the world, afternoon, evening. So I hope you are all well. Thank you for joining us live. Playing a great song there by our good friend SOS on Side. Cool Side was actually one of the more recent ones. Is actually published on iTunes and Spotify. No doubt there'll probably be an NFT version of that. I think there is. Don't quote me on it, but yeah. So SOS on Side, great musician out of New York, in the US, and we love his music. So we always like to support what he's doing, and a very innovative way in terms of him also minting his music as NFTs on the Ravencoin blockchain. So shout out to SOS, another fantastic song, Cool Side. So I hope you enjoyed that. But yeah, let's probably give a few minutes for people to join us live and just give it sort of time. And I do appreciate the ones that are here already. The Humble Miner, Mirage, Indie Bows, thank you so much for joining. I must thank you, Indie Bows, while I've got you on here, for sending you your thank you tokens, a fantastic NFT token that you've created with your branding on it, Indie Bow. So fantastic. I saw that come through on the wallet yesterday. So thank you so much. But yeah, look, it's probably just, like I said, before we sort of get into the formalities of today, BRIK Q&A that we do weekly about what we're doing here in tokenizing our Australian real estate properties, investment properties. Before we sort of get into the topic of today and open up for Q&A, probably just sort of reflecting on the past week in terms of what's been happening here and around the world. Obviously, there was the Bitcoin conference in Miami last weekend. Again, I did catch up on most of the streaming so far. There's still probably a couple more hours still to go. So you always get great ideas in terms of what's happening on the blockchain. Obviously, although it is Bitcoin focused, but there's always a great in terms of people, things they're doing, or countries in terms of what they're doing, like El Salvador. It's always great to get an update in terms of, as the blockchain industry as a whole, in terms of what's happening and the developments across different areas, whether it be in terms of the actual cryptocurrencies, or whether it be real world assets like real estate and so forth. So again, always great to see some of the great things that are happening, and in terms of what it's meaning for some of the countries like El Salvador, as to what's actually meant to them adopting Bitcoin as their currency over there. So again, it's sounds like it's fantastic things that is happening for the country there, with tourism booming, and obviously no doubt some investment on infrastructure with their volcano energy. They'll power Bitcoin mining over there as part of their major project in the next phase. So again, it's always great to hear in terms of what's happening from all things blockchain. Saying hello to Vincent also. Thank you for joining us live. Thank you, sir. But yeah, it's so it was a great enjoyment. Actually, I'll put the links up also of today's YouTube links to the live feeds. If anybody wants to sort of look at it, you can catch up on what happened last weekend, the 3 days, which I think started with developers, and then the general public day 1, day 2. So it was 3 days. Obviously, there was some candidates for the US presidency into next year. So they're putting up there what they believe in, and obviously with Bitcoin and blockchain, and in terms of their views and how governments should be, and what their thoughts are going to be in terms of putting up a hand for as president candidates. So again, it was great to hear their views. I think it starts with that motion that there's a few politicians getting, again, whether they're just talking it, and I guess we'll see if they do succeed in terms of the actions that they talk about. So again, it was great to hear in terms of some of that positivity in terms of trying to make awareness and from the halls of government. So hopefully that's a good outcome in terms of in going forward. We all know that the US always plays a key role when it comes to technology and leading the way, leading the world with all things technology. So obviously we're all watching, and hopefully it does go in the right direction that the whole world can follow. I know some continents in Europe are already sort of taking their own stance in terms of some of the rules, and so it seemed very positive last month, some of the rules coming out of the European Union. So again, I know we all hope that the world gets on board in terms of how blockchain in general can make an impact on people of all levels, in terms of, and all, it doesn't matter whether you're really poor, you're really rich. Hopefully everybody's got the same ability to live their dreams and aspire and be able to chase their dreams and aspirations. But yeah, it's probably another conference that was on. There was also Blockchain John and Jake from C3 Media that do some fantastic work in providing a lot of content out there on their YouTube channel in terms of what's happening, all things blockchain with the different projects across different platforms. So they were at the blockchain conference late last week. Actually catch up on their YouTube video, their update of the conference. I think it was a sort of a bit negative in terms of the turn-ups and the booths and so forth. So again, great to share that what was happening. John and Jake, really enjoyed that video, and really enjoy your videos and keeping us all up to date. And obviously John and Jake are also big advocates in terms of the Ravencoin blockchain, so they always share in terms of some of the updates, what's happening on the Ravencoin blockchain as well. What else has been happening? Indonesia, actually, they had the Bitcoin conference. I did see actually one of the leaders from Indonesia, one of the governors from one of the provinces, who actually is putting up a hand to be president. I think it's next year. There are presidential elections in Indonesia. I mean, Indonesia itself, they've got around 270 million people. I mean, that's they obviously sit on the doorstep of Australia. I think their population is almost as big as the American population, so quite huge. Obviously, developing country, and obviously great opportunities in terms of where this particular governor sees what blockchain can do for their population, especially Bitcoin, to start off with, in terms of mining. So he was saying that given their alternative energy with the rivers, with hydro energy, they only half of their energy is actually consumed. So they're looking at Bitcoin mining as a way for people to come in, the private sector come in and actually invest in infrastructure to mine Bitcoin and be able to use that excess energy that they've got at the moment. So yeah, it's some great things that are happening there. Probably lastly, in terms of reflections or what's coming up from an Australian perspective, I do enjoy all sports. Here in Australia, we do enjoy a particular sport called rugby league football. So it's NFL without any pads or helmets. So it's players just basically 13 aside, and they just basically go out there and in a very aggressive type of sport, and with no pads, no helmets. So we got the interstate clash this coming up, Queensland, which is our state here, against New South Wales. So state against state, and it's always fiery. It's probably one of the best rugby league played in the world, given even better than international rugby league, given how the fierce rivalry it brings out in terms of between the two teams, and the passion of the fans. So we're all very passionate Queenslanders here, and so looking forward to that. I'll put up a link if people don't know what rugby league is. I'll put up a link and to show you last year's and how a little bit of glimpse as to exactly what rugby league is all about. So I think even I've had the comments from NFL players in the US. Even they're just mesmerised in terms of how can these crazy guys go out there with no pads or helmets and bash each other up. So you'll see some of that. So so just after 10 past, so we'll just go through some of the topic for today. So what I wanted to talk about, probably before I get stuck in topic, probably should introduce myself again. And so I am Miguel Aleixo. I'm the Managing Director and Co-Founder of BRIK BC Projects with my other co-founder, Melinda Aleixo. We Tokenize investment properties here in Australia, focusing in single homes, single family homes. So they're luxury investment properties. So we've got two live ones at the moment. So we've got the Brisbane property, the Koala property, should I say. And we got the more recent one, the Dolphin property, the Gold Coast property, which is a newly built property. And that one's being tokenized on the Ravencoin blockchain. So anybody can buy tokens in these by going onto that platform. We'll put up some of the links there. They're all under $100, so they're $80 per token each. So anybody can go on there and buy it. If you're going for the first time, subscribe to the account, get verified, and then you're on your way to be part of the family, the BRIK family, and getting on the journey with us. So so those two properties. So once all the tokens are sold out, we will settle on the property, and the journey starts. So then people can actually buy and sell on the platform their respective tokens once we actually settle on the properties. So at any time you can sell one, you can sell many in terms of once the journey starts with those properties. So it's on there. Anybody can go in there, buy the initial tokens, and once settled, the journey starts. So it's on our website. Get a link there to the platform, our property tokens platform, and just follow the prompts. So that's what we do here. In terms of if you are listening for the first time and you're sort of wondering what is tokenized real estate, it's basically breaking up a real estate property into fractions. In our case, it's 40,000 fractions, tokens. Anybody can buy one of those 40,000. You can buy one, can buy many, and then basically have exposure to the benefits that comes with that property. These properties are rented out, and basically once you buy in it, you get exposure to the up value. So these properties, given where we're tokenizing these properties, given we've got the Olympics in 2032, we've got a lot of migration coming up here, which is causing a lot of increase in property values. The 2032 Olympics hasn't really started. The exposure to that hasn't really started yet. They'll sort of be more like around 2028 when it starts getting turbocharged. But at the moment, it's with just migration from interstate and from other countries, and expats coming back is causing a really increase in values here in Brisbane and Gold Coast. So it's having an impact on property values immensely. Sort of the 26 to 30%, depending on some of the areas. So 30% in the last 18 months, some 24%. So again, it's an area that we see there's a huge opportunity, and we see these properties, and we also from last year when we're sort of forecasting it out, we were seeing these properties sort of going 4 times their value by 2032. So it's a great place in terms of when it comes to in terms of investment property, especially in terms of the accessibility through the process of tokenizing to provide that opportunity to anybody to anywhere in the world. So that's in terms of what tokenized real estate is all about. Obviously, it's on the blockchain, so it's visible. It's there. You can't change what's on the blockchain. So it's a ledger that records those property tokens. So But in terms of today's topic, and so why did we tokenize real estate properties? I mean, I guess if I go back in terms of me and my family being involved in real estate property investment for 30 years now. So I guess we know the game very well. We know in terms of the cycles. We know in terms of what works, what doesn't work. So and the thing is with banks, it's some of our contacts, friends around us. We always hear the stories that how hard it is to get into real estate. With the banks, obviously, we have a look in terms of when you're borrowing money to buy a lumpy asset like a real estate property. Obviously, the banks are looking at 2 things in terms of can you service the loan, and 2, what equity can you provide. Typically, residential, you always need 20% of cash or using other properties of equity to be able to buy a property and borrow 80% of that cost of that property. So they're the two things: serviceability and the equity that you can provide, at least the 20%. So it's becoming harder and harder. The reason it's becoming harder, obviously, you're increasing values in property, they continue to rise. But wages actually stay very stagnant. So if you have a look in terms of how much wages have increased, and again, it's not just here in Australia, but it's across the world as well. In terms of other, in the US, some of the people I speak to over there in the US and also in the UK and Europe, it's a common story that the wages don't go up that much compared to in terms of the property values increasing. So you got this position where basically you're trying to buy a property, and obviously when you look at serviceability, it becomes harder and harder each year because these properties keep going up in value, and you're always sort of chasing your tail. So again, the stories that we've been hearing, and it's becoming harder and harder to get into real estate. We sort of look at some of these, if I look at some of these properties here, especially so for as an example here in Brisbane, and I'll sort of quote it in Australian dollars, so sort of a feel for what's been happening. A property 3 years ago that you could buy, for around the sort of the 550 mark. That same property now is sitting like around 890, 900,000. Some places $1 million. So some of these properties actually doubled, or at least sort of 70%. That's sort of the lower end of the market. So again, it's for those properties. It's especially if you're buying as for investment or even for your own home, it's becoming challenging. So again, the challenges that we were hearing, and we started thinking about it in terms of how can we actually provide an opportunity to. So we sort of, obviously we were doing already, so we thought, okay, why don't we bring other people on a journey with us in some of these properties that they're out there, and probably sort of and sort of go focusing in the real niche space that we see that where the opportunities are going to be in some of the high-end areas. So again, in Brisbane, we're sort of focusing around Ascot, Hamilton. These are the areas that they're high-end areas, a lot of wealth and prestige areas. So given that it's fairly close to what's happening with the Olympics as well, and close to the city, we're always going to have people that are executives that are either here for a short period of time, and the company is paying for their premises. So there's going to be these are the tenants for our properties. So basically, we see that these type of properties is now providing the ability that to anybody to be able to come on a journey with us and be able to have exposure to these investment properties. So, for example, the Koala property, that's a $2.6 million total cost US dollars, and again, it's normally that sort of profit. If someone buy that property, it'd be very hard to do it yourself. So we see in terms of what we sort of term is that it's now the everyday person being able to be the landlords to the wealthy, because these properties are actually these executives are earning $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year, and it's a lot of time it's the actual companies that they work for who are actually paying for the rent for these properties. So again, it's we saw an opportunity to get people to come on a journey, with us and be able to have that exposure to the properties, and probably just pause there. I forgot to actually mention that the pinned tweets that I've got here. So obviously the first one being in terms of Dolphin property, which I'll sort of briefly talk about. In terms of the second one being in terms of how, in terms of links to our property tokens platform. That was the Indonesian. The third one's actually the Indonesian, the governor from that province I was talking about. So there's some links and some comments I made on the on that tweet. The fourth one, IndieBows. So again, IndieBows have put up a post about, so which I'll talk about later on in regards to the Ravencoin gems. Monthly event, and then WAGMI. So Sunny, always very appreciative in terms of Sunny mentioning us. We actually on the WAGMI in NFT platform that she has with Sir Chrome. So and a fantastic article that on us there. And what was the other? I know Banks nearby. So there's actually an artist. I think he's actually in the past created work. He's got his astronaut that goes part of his lone journey around the world. And during the week, he actually put up, I think just actually, Gold Coast, Tambourine Mountains, which is one of the high points of the Gold Coast area, in the mountains, looking down to the coast. So he does AI artwork, and but I'm sure I think he's actually done stuff on the Raven, minted some of his stuff on the Ravencoin blockchain. So I actually did encourage him to come and do some more work, create some more work, and on the Ravencoin blockchain, because it's fantastic pieces that, as some of you know, we actually collect artwork for our properties. So we buy artwork for our properties, and the digital art, NFT artwork. But we only buy from artists that are actually creating, minting their work on the Ravencoin blockchain through the various NFT markets, whether it be Ravenist, NFT RVN. So that's sort of the two main ones where we buy from, and actually Indie Bose and Mirage are actually are listening. We have got some their artwork is actually owned by the properties we tokenized, both the koala and the dolphin properties. So we do, not only do we buy just for our properties in general, whether it be our office, whether it be the properties we tokenize, but the ones we tokenize, there is 12 pieces that we do buy that actually owned by that token series, and Mirage and India actually they're respectively they're in those two property token series. So again, so I did encourage banks nearby to actually mint some of his work on the Ravencoin blockchain, because there's some fantastic pieces. Actually done that one there of the Tambourine Mountain. I've actually done one of the Great Barrier Reef, which is actually our famous reef here in Queensland. So he actually done one yesterday also on the Great Barrier Reef. So shout out to No Banks nearby. Fantastic AI artwork you do. But yeah, I thought I'd just pause and mention that. I forgot to mention at the beginning the what those pinned tweets I put up there. But yeah, look, in terms of just coming back to, again, in terms of why we tokenize real estate property, we saw that, it's becoming harder and harder. And we want to give it the opportunity for, it doesn't matter where you come from around the world, whether you in an African continent, South America, UK, Europe, Australia, US, Canada, doesn't matter what country you're from. It's providing that ability that you can start actually accumulating wealth, real estate wealth, through tokenized real estate property. Obviously, some of our colleagues around the world are doing it with different type of models, but the point of it is in that it's the ability to have buying for as little as under $100, be able to have that exposure to a property, real estate property, for $100 and start accumulating and be able to have that exposure on the journey ahead. So again, I think it's now even more important. Obviously, with interest rates rising, obviously with the price of living around the world going up, with inflation obviously has been out of control. Obviously, a lot of governments trying to control inflation through the interest rates, which that's another story. But it's causing a lot of pain for a lot of people around the world. I mean, here in Australia, we've had, in terms of inflation, it's been high. I mean, some of the figures that are quoted, I think they're actually much higher than what the official figures, the official inflation rates are. I think the same story in US. US obviously been much higher than ours, but I think the official inflation rates are much higher than what's quoted, because obviously the basket of goods that are measured, continues to obviously change in terms of how people consume technology, consume different things that before they didn't, given the way things are sort of been heading. And so again, that's another story. But yeah, all to say is that it's becoming harder and harder, and I think people sort of got to look in terms of how can they put some build some wealth during these hard times in a more effective way. And I think tokenized real estate is definitely one way people could just sort of grab some along the way every month or every week, putting something aside, small aside, but as small as it is, it's accumulating. So then as things go forward, they've got this accumulating basket of wealth made up of various real estate property tokens around the world. So again, this is not financial advice. It's just me just providing general information in terms of just as what people can do to sort of think outside the square that before there wasn't available, and but now you got the ability to do so. And I was actually listening, and at the RVN, I was actually about to mention something. I was actually listening to at the RVN, who just joined us as a listener. They've got an NFT marketplace, which I said before, where we do buy some of our NFT artwork from. But I was actually listening to the early space, Twitter space, and which I didn't have a chance to listen to it live, but listen to the recording. We had a gentleman. He was born in Kenya, and he was talking about in terms of what blockchain is doing for his country in Kenya, and the ability for people to start sort of have now the reality of be able to accumulate wealth by playing around with tokens as a starting point, and be able to get used to it. And so I was sort of listening to him talk, and again, it's sort of we start talking about real estate again for a developing country like Kenya. It's perfect in terms of people now have got the ability to start buying little bits along the way of tokenized real estate and be exposed to real estate. So again, it's so he's obviously playing as a big advocate in terms of how Kenya can sort of move forward. The people of Kenya can move forward, and obviously he's playing a role, no doubt, in providing information, education, and content around in terms of what he can do for his people in Kenya. So it was great to hear him talk. I did forget his name. I didn't write down his name, but I was hearing him talk on the NFTRVN Twitter space. So some good stuff there. NFTRVN on your Twitter space before. But yeah, so that's the in terms of, I said again, why we started tokenizing real estate is having the ability to provide people the opportunity to come on a journey with us and have exposure to real estate property now, and for as little as $80 per token, having that exposure to build their wealth in going forward. So again, that's why we decided to tokenize real estate. I'll open up in terms of the Q&A session. It is a Q&A. So if there's any questions, please ask for the mic, and I'll give you the mic to be able to ask any questions. And like I said, we try to sort of keep it short. And I know people around the world, different parts of the world. I know Indy, it's really past your bedtime. I think it's past midnight there in the UK. So I do appreciate you listening to it live. But 12:30 Indy, my God, it's 12:30 in the morning there. But and I think in the US with the RVN Mirage and Vincent, where these guys at, you're closing out the Friday afternoon. It's what is it? Eastern in the eastern part. So 7:30. If you're up in the western, 4:30. So you just got the afternoon, just closing off in the afternoon. So, but yeah, if there's any questions, please come up and ask questions, or else we'll start wrapping it up. And but there's actually as we start the wrap up, if there's no questions, we'll start the wrap up. There is something I wanted to mention. So we've got we tokenize, as I said before, our properties on the Ravencoin blockchain. Always very supportive of the Ravencoin community. With all things that are tokenized on the Ravencoin blockchain. The Ravencoin blockchain is a fork of the Bitcoin blockchain. So the fundamentals of the platform, like Bitcoin, but specially built to tokenize assets on it. So we got artwork, we've got music there, we've got gaming, we've even got wine, and obviously there is real estate property. We were the first ones tokenize real estate property on the Ravencoin blockchain. So we always have that honor, and very thankful to be the first to use great technology of Ravencoin blockchain. So as a community, there's various sessions, Twitter Spaces that go on to keep people informed. Like at FTRVN, he hosts his Twitter Spaces regularly every week, in terms of talking about Ravencoin and the artwork, his platform, in terms of artists that tokenize, that he helps tokenize as an NFT marketplace. But yeah, so it's and Vincent's also got his project as well that he's created. So again, there's some great people that are continuing to build on the Ravencoin blockchain. And again, we like to think that we continue to support in various ways in terms where we can, to be as a community, to be able to keep moving forward, and as I always say, the rising tide raises all boats. So again, it's as I said, it is there is an event that as a community, Ravencoin community, used to host every month. It was on Braveland Metaverse. It's now being renamed because Braveland's metaverse is no longer this. It can't be used anymore. So we've actually. The community now is actually called that monthly event, first Saturday of the month, the Ravencoin's Gems monthly event. So that's going to be starting back up again next weekend. So it's Saturday US time. So we as a community, we'll put up stuff in terms of what's coming up. So it's not going to be the normal metaverse. It's going to be an 8-bit metaverse that we're going to sort of try to get back to. And thank you, Indie Bose, for we've actually pinned that up, for actually putting that post up during the week. So we're going to give it a go in a 8-bit metaverse. So we'll give that a go and see how that goes. But the point is getting the community together that first Saturday of the month and continue to educate and awareness and updates in terms of what the community is doing in different spaces, in terms of different projects that are being tokenized on the Ravencoin blockchain, and try to, again, as a collective, try to bring people from other chains and to people coming for the first time, to provide exposure in terms of what we're all doing on this great piece of technology of the Ravencoin blockchain. So so we'll put that up. It's actually up. It has a pin, and Indie Bose pin in regards to that. So I think that's all I got for today. So I hope if there's no questions, we'll wrap it up. Probably just as a reminder in terms of what's coming up for next week. So we do our real estate tokenization. I host what is real estate tokenization show. So that's the same day every month. Just had Vincent as a speaker there, and also I've got a chat during the week with Mark Fiddleman. Mark actually has got a YouTube channel. He provides a lot of content in terms of interviews. In regards to real world assets, tokenized real world assets, particularly around tokenized real estate. So having a chat with Mark Fiddleman on his YouTube channel next week. So looking forward to that. Vincent, how are you? Just connecting. Just thinking. Still thinking. Not too sure whether you can... how it's going from your end, Vincent? I'll try to add you again. Invite to speak. Let's see if that works for you. Seems like there's another glitch. Just added as a speaker, but it's not connecting. No. Okay. One of those glitches of Twitter Spaces, not allowing me to add Vincent as a speaker after his request. Okay. If there's anything, just send me a message if there's anything that you want to ask me. So look, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us live. Really appreciate Vincent, Indie Bose, Mirage, and at the RVN. Really appreciate joining live. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy it. Stay safe, and same time, same place next week. Take care. Bye for now.